Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the plans for the future and what this channel is going to be about. Just before we start, we are nearing the end of 2019. I might publish maybe one more video before the end of the year instead of our usual daily schedule, since I'm planning and strategizing some new things for the channel. Don't worry, we'll hop back on the daily anyways, and if you're watching this, you're probably one of the more loyal fans or more loyal people who feel like you get a lot of value from the content that we go over. Now, before we begin, remember to smash that like button, even though this is not going to be an algorithmic video or a video that's made with text and all that stuff in order to be found. But I just wanted to make sure that you know what's going on, since you won't be seeing videos every single day till the December 31st. Now, why is this? Now, I have been working pretty hard, not just on YouTube, but on some other social media as well. Just today, I believe I finally passed the 1,000 follower mark on the TikTok app. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can look it up. It's kind of like a newer Musical.ly or Vine or something along those lines. And I am pretty much just publishing daily on there as well as on other social media. Now, why am I doing that? Because at the end of the day, yes, it's great to have a big following in any social media, really. Whether it's for business or just for fun, I'm doing it, both of those things at the same time in a way. But you want to make sure that you're kind of like diversifying where people are finding you and where you can potentially maybe do business or maybe get money from advertisement, or just in general, what is your creative outlet or how you're having fun in a productive fashion. So in that sense, I've been hard at work thinking about not only the strategy, but what is it that I'm going to do going forward. And something interesting that I've seen from other people, much more advanced than I am in a journey, is that sometimes it's not the strategy that creates the actions, but the other way around. In other words, I've been experimenting a lot, and I found, for example, that in some social media, when I go in with content that's literally just in Spanish, because if you're watching this and you didn't know it, I am bilingual both in English and Spanish, but I'm a native Spanish speaker. So when I went with content made in Spanish, it had a much stronger response. Now, this is a dual sword for two reasons. If you're doing the content just because you're having fun and that's what you want to do, that's great if that's the only reason. But if you also have the prospects, like I do, of potentially monetizing that at some point later down the road, whether that's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or whatever, then you want to make sure that you're creating an audience that is actually potentially interested in purchasing services, or who are going to watch your videos and talk about it and maybe help you with a word of mouth, so that maybe you can get money through advertisement or merch or any of those things. These are some of the topics that we don't naturally talk about in this channel, because we're a little bit more geared towards the job market, helping you find a job, helping you ace the interviews. But at the same time, we have touched on some of the entrepreneurial topics. So if you are a little bit more entrepreneurial minded, or you're interested in this subject, then please continue along watching this video. So basically, well, when I did that experiment and I saw that a response that was much stronger, I was like, okay, then it makes sense for me to consider doing things in Spanish only or on English only. And then I was thinking, like, what will be the best mix? For example, I've seen channels that do different things. They sometimes put videos in both languages. That is something that is not recommended. I did a lot of research on that. There are people who do 2 different channels. That's also a different way of doing it, and there are other ways of going about it if it's just on YouTube. But imagine having multiple social media, like 7 or 8 different social media, and then working on all of them, but also working on all of them in both languages. That is something that is just too much work, and unless you're like a big company or something like that, it's probably not going to be very easy, especially because you want to focus on the one thing that you're best at, right? So in that sense, I've been thinking about that strategy and working on it among other things, as well as in my personal life and my workouts and all that stuff. So I decided to just take a small break now, since we're talking about job-related topics, until, let's say, January as we start. And I'm gonna have a lot of videos batched up already that I've worked on, but I'm probably gonna release one more video before the end of the year, sometime when it's not like an actual holiday. So back to the social media one, just before you kill me. And basically, I saw that changed, and I decided that sometime in the future I'm probably, don't kill me on this if I don't do it, but I'll probably will start another YouTube channel, but that's just for Spanish speaking people, right? And I am, as of this moment, thinking of, if I do that, then still pushing this English channel, but also the one that's just in Spanish. And here's why. Because someone will say, okay, but why don't you just focus on that which is giving you the most followers, the most subscribers, the soonest, right? Well, that makes sense, but remember, if you're someone who's trying to look for an income, then with a Spanish-speaking audience only, sadly, it's going to be much harder to achieve an income goal that you have. Now, let's say, for example, that you wanted to make $1,000 a month, or $5,000, or $10,000, or $100,000. It doesn't matter. Regardless, the fact is, and I've seen this from people who have very big, like multiple million subscribers on their Spanish-speaking YouTube channels, just to give you an idea. And they've encountered a lot of problems when it comes to actually monetizing that audience. For example, brand deals are much harder to come by when it comes to the Spanish-speaking or Latin American audience, because, as we all know, some of our countries have much less disposable income to spend on anything, right? That's just the way our economies work relative to some of the more developed countries in the world. And therefore, yeah, our costs are lower, but also our incomes are substantially lower as well. That means that getting brand deals, it's harder. That also means that CPMs, in other words, the money you get from advertisement on a channel that has an audience that is predominantly from outside the United States or other places, is going to be lower. In other words, for every 1,000 views, you're going to get cents on the dollar versus $1 to $15 depending on the niche you are on YouTube. That's two things, right? Two ways to monetize your channel or a social media that become much harder if you go with just a Spanish-speaking audience. And that's Spanish, which is one of the better languages if it's not English, right? Let's exclude maybe Mandarin, which they probably have other social media like Douyin, among others. So that's two. What about merch? A lot of people like to sell merch, and that's pretty easy if you're in the United States or another place where it's you can just go with someone who's maybe a drop shipper or another company like that, right? But if you are dealing with people who basically speak Spanish in Latin America, then you have multiple different countries, each with their own different rules when it comes to importing goods from abroad. Sometimes that can be very costly with the international shipping, sometimes with the taxes that they levy on goods that you're bringing in from other places, and that actually makes it harder for people to actually purchase things, because maybe they're purchasing something for $20, they really like you and your brand, but then they have to pay another $20 just on shipping and taxes and all that stuff. It's a big hassle, and that is very difficult. Now that's the third one, right? And finally, even if you have your own business, it becomes much harder, even if it's an online business, to actually sell something, right? Let's say that if you could sell something for $400 up to $1,000 in a global market where people have deeper pockets, maybe there are some people who have more resources, or just from more developed countries, generally speaking. If you could sell something like that, then in Latin America, you will have to do it for like $100 or something like that. It's obviously a demand and supply issue. It's not that there aren't people who can easily afford those something more expensive. Yes, there are, but there are much fewer than if you were, for example, speaking in English and having a more global audience, from which many of them come from actual developed countries, not developing countries. Now, I'm not here to say anything that's like, I'm just talking about what I've seen other people have gone through who have a big following in a Spanish-speaking audience. That's just facts. It's economic facts, like when you see all the numbers and all that stuff, GDP per capita, all that stuff, right? Income levels. So it's just facts. I'm not here to discriminate anyone or anything like that. So I think it is a very important market if you want to get more exposure, more brand awareness, and you can definitely have a business, because I know people who make over $1 million in revenue per year online, selling only or exclusively to a Latin American Spanish-speaking audience. But these services themselves are lower priced, which means that in order to get there, they had to sell a lot of units. And by a lot of units, this means that you need many more people to know who you are, many more people to be followers of your work if you are doing content marketing like I am. And that basically means that it's going to be harder, because for every one let's say Spanish speaking follower that you get, or someone who is a real fan, then you could say that you will get about 1/4 of what you could get with a comparatively English speaking follower at a developed country, so to speak, right? Now, that's not to say like, oh, they are worth more or anything like that. It's just talking about facts, talking about numbers, and a little bit more of a business-y jargon thing and things that I have seen. That's just the experiences of other people who have gone through it, right? And I wanted to share that with you just to give you an idea of where I'm going with this. But other than that, I think that I'll probably, if I do start a YouTube channel in Spanish, I'll probably just hit them both English and Spanish as well as in a couple other select social media specifically for the Spanish speaking market. So if you are watching this, and I know that many of you are friends of mine, you've known me from before I started a YouTube channel anyways, and you will actually rather get the content in Spanish, don't worry, we'll bring that in. And if you're also worrying about like, oh, but will I be like subscribed to both channels? I know you're publishing daily, I don't want to get all those notifications. Don't worry, when it gets to the point, just pick the channel that you like best, subscribe to that one, and feel free to unsubscribe either from this one or stay on this one and then go to the next one if we get to that point. So basically that's all I wanted to say for now. I tried to leave a little thing there just to give you an idea of some business-minded things that you could think of if you're interested in the world of social media, potentially starting a business, or you're just curious about those things as well. I'm actually gonna put this on the playlist about for entrepreneurs and business owners. It's probably gonna be very helpful for people who deal with multiple languages, of which I know quite a few. Not necessarily in Spanish, but in other languages as well. So, and that's it for now, and maybe expect one more video before the end of the year, and then we'll start January with a lot of force. I'll make sure that I have a ton of really good content. I'm gonna work to really improve the watch time in this channel. In other words, make the videos much more interesting, make some transitions, changing things around, making them more compelling as well. That's something that's one of my major goals starting next year. So with that, remember to comment below if there's anything you would like to share, or if you think that actually starting a channel in Spanish is a good idea based on your opinion. So if that's it, if you haven't liked this video yet, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out. Bye bye.